A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Embedding Intercultural Competencies across disciplines in social sciences. To begin with, please allow me to extend our warmest welcome to our respectable excellencies, guests, and speakers. The Honorable Dean of Social Sciences and Law, Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Mr. Firdaus Wajdi MA Ph.D.,
Vice Dean for Academic and Student Affairs, Dr. Kurniawati MSc,
Vice Dean for Finance and Resource, Dr. Aris Munandar MSc,
Vice Dean for Research, Innovation, Information System and Partnership, Dr. Elizabeth Nugrahaini MSc.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, and peace be upon us all.
Let us offer our praise and gratitude to the Almighty God, for it is by His grace and blessing that we can gather here in the 212 meeting room, Universitas Negeri Jakarta, on this beautiful morning in good health and well-being. It is an honor and pleasure for Social Sciences and Law Faculty Ambassador to welcome all of you in this special occasion. I'm Zulfian, also my partner,
Azalia Belinda,
as your master of ceremony for today's agenda. There is Embedding Intercultural Competencies across disciplines in social sciences. The next agenda is now we will sing national anthem and march Wenju.
Indonesia
To bless our event, we will now have a moment of prayer. The prayer will be led by me. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Now, we would like to invite the Chairman of Committee, Dr. Maulina Larasati, SOS MECOM, to deliver the welcoming speech. You may now proceed.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
To the Honorable Dean Faculty of Social Science and Law, Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Firdaus Wajdi, Ph.D. To the Honorable Vice Dean Faculty of Social Science and Law, Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Dr. Kurniawati, MSc, and Dr. Aris Munandar, MSc. And to our speaker, Sanili Owens, Ph.D. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. I would like to express our sincere gratitude for your presence here to join webinar about embedding intercultural competencies across discipline in social science. The webinar offers insight into integrating intercultural competencies within social science education. We hope this webinar will be a valuable learning experiences for all of us. Thank you for attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mrs. Laras, for the warm and inspiring welcome.
All right, we would like to invite the Dean of Social Sciences and Law Faculty, Mr. Firdaus Wajdi, MA, PhD, to deliver the welcoming speech. You may now proceed.
Okay. Good morning and peace be upon you all, and warm greetings from Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. To our distinguished speaker, Professor Sanili Owens, she is our visiting professor from California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, is that correct? Hopefully it's correct. Okay. And it's really a great pleasure to again see you in our academic event at the Faculty of Law and Social Sciences. And also respective colleagues, students, and all participants, it is truly a pleasure and an honor to welcome you to today's webinar, Embedding Intercultural Competencies across Disciplines in Social Sciences. On behalf of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the speakers who have graciously agreed to share their time, expertise, and perspectives with us. I also wish to thank the organizing team, the Department of Communication, for their dedication in preparing this event, and for the course, all of you for taking the time to join us. As we understand, intercultural competence has become a vital skill in today's globalized world. In the context of social sciences, this means equipping our students and also ourselves, of course, with the ability to understand, engage with, and navigate diverse cultural perspectives across disciplines, whether in sociology, in law, in communication, or in public policy. These skills are essential to addressing complex social challenges with empathy, respect, and collaboration. This webinar is part of our ongoing commitment to fostering an academic environment that values inclusion, critical thinking, and global awareness. We hope that discussions today will spark new insights and encourage meaningful collaboration across disciplines and culture. And I would like with that, it is also my honor to officially open today's webinar, Embedding Intercultural Competencies Across Discipline in Social Sciences. May it be a fruitful and inspiring experience for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Firdaus Wajdi, for the warm and inspiring welcome.
Moving on to the next agenda, we are privileged to have distinguished speakers today who will share their insight on this important topic. But before we start the main session, allow me to introduce our moderator for today, Mr. Sandi Allifiansyah. Mr. Sandi is one of the esteemed lecturers in the Communication Science Department at Universitas Negeri Jakarta. He completed his doctoral studies in 2023 at the National Institute of Development Administration in Thailand. In addition to his academic role, Mr. Sandi is actively involved in academic publishing. He has received several awards in recognition of his contributions to the field. We are honored to have Mr. Sandi as our moderator for today.
And our speaker include Professor Sunny Lee Owens, Ph.D., and Mr. Firdaus Wajdi, MA, Ph.D. To begin this seminar, we would like to hand over this session to our esteemed moderator, Mr. Sandi. You may now proceed the session.
Okay, thank you very much, the MC couple. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Sandi Allifiansyah. I'm a lecturer at the Department of Communication Science, Faculty of Social Science and Law, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. I'm here to accompany you during the session with Dr. Sunny Owens. So you can prepare your best questions because we're gonna be having a Q&A, okay? So we're gonna be discussing about the embedding intercultural competencies across discipline in social sciences. So it's gonna be a very brief and extensive session ahead. But before we begin, let me recite and read Dr. Sunny Lee Owens' CV. So Dr. Sunny Lee Owens is an associate professor in communication at California State Polytechnic University. Before that, she also received her Ph.D. from University of Massachusetts at Amherst, United States. She also received her MSc from University of Southern California and also London School of Economic and Political Science. Wow, what a great academic journey. She also teaches communication theory, including intercultural communication, gender, and also communication. So what else can I say about her? It's going to be very exciting seminar we're going to be having. Okay, without further ado, I'll give the stage to Dr. Sunny. So Dr. Sunny, the stage is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mas Sandi, for that welcome. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's Friday morning. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend this webinar. To be honest, webinars and Zoom interactions are not my favorite. They're not my number one choice. I'd rather see you in person and meet you in person. But this is the format that we have today, so we'll work with it. Here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to present my slides for about half hour or so, but I think it's going to be a little longer because number one, I have a lot to cover, but number two, I've also included a participatory aspect towards the end of the slides. So I have some scenarios that I want to introduce to you, and I want to hear your answers with regards to intercultural situations where awkwardness might happen. I'm also going to speak primarily in English, so please forgive me because my Bahasa Indonesia is not good enough, it's not refined enough to run a webinar using that language. But as I tell my students a lot, I'm most comfortable when I'm able to code switch between Bahasa Indonesia and Bahasa Inggris. So I will do that because that's how I speak in my head, at least in my daily life. And I hope you're okay with that too. So without further ado, let's begin. And a big shout out to my students who are here today, students I haven't met yet. It's been so exciting and so invigorating to meet with young people here in Jakarta. 30 years ago. It's been really, really exciting and fun to get to know you all. Okay, let's begin. Right. All right, here goes. Excuse me. Okay, the theme today is titled Embedding Intercultural Competencies Across Disciplines in Social Sciences. It's made to be broad enough that anyone who's interested, let me not reveal my family yet. Anyone who's interested in social sciences will feel that it's something that they can apply in their studies, in their communication, and in their professional, personal lives. The slides, the presentation itself, I've divided it into three parts. The first part is about, structurally speaking, how can we make sure that we are all interculturally competent, regardless what our discipline is. You don't have to be in communication to be a good communicator. You don't have to be in communication in Prodi Komunikasi in order to care about intercultural interactions, right? So number one is structurally, administratively, from a curriculum standpoint, what can we do? Number two is a more practical, grounded level of what do we do when we encounter someone whose culture is different from ours? And this I've taught to my students in my KLB class that I share with Mbak Laras, Komunikasi Lintas Bangsa. And this is something that most of us in Prodi Komunikasi have been trained in. So I feel like it's a waste. It's a loss if I'm not able to share with you some of our participation. So it's not just me talking nonstop for 45 minutes. Okay. And I believe Masandi mentioned that you can for later through chat or in person. I welcome your feedback. I look forward to discussing things with you. So let's begin. Oh, okay, hold on. Just a second. Here. All right. A brief introduction about myself. My name is Sunny Owens. Please call me Sunny. My students call me Prof. Sunny. I'm okay with that too. I'm an associate professor of communication at Cal Poly Pomona, which stands for California State Polytechnic University Pomona. Yes, the images you see in LA, that's basically my hometown. I am an Angelino. And I'm going to say like a quick blurb about that it's not as bad as the news make it to be. So I am from California, specifically from Los Angeles, California, and my home university is Cal Poly Pomona. I'm currently completing a Fulbright teaching fellowship here at UNJ in Prodi Komunikasi. My area of research focuses on culture and communication, and intercultural communication is how I mostly communicate in my daily life. As you can see, my family is mixed. We're a mixed family, and I'm proud of it. And I look forward to sharing some of the things that I've learned in my professional and personal lives with you. Okay. What does it look like to be interculturally competent in universities, right? There are 4 points that I'd like to bring up today. Number one, if you're interculturally competent, which means that you're able to navigate through what Pak Dekan has said earlier regarding diversity, sensitivity to various cultural approaches, what does it look like? Number one, you are able to navigate, right? You are not able to navigate cultural complexities with sensitivity and confidence. You're confident, but you're also aware that people are not they might not share the same culture as you. They might not do the same things as you do. Number two, and I bolded it in red here, recognize and adapt to different communication styles and expectations. This is the part where I'm going to elaborate a little more because there are some tricks that you can learn if you haven't already. And for my colleagues and students at Prodi Komunikasi, this is a repeat of what we've already talked about in our department. Number three, an interculturally competent Indonesian university would apply discipline-specific knowledge within diverse cultural contexts, meaning you have knowledge in sociology, in law, you have knowledge in Islamic studies, you have knowledge in history, and all of this discipline-specific knowledge you can apply in diverse cultural contexts. Last but not least, you're able to collaborate effectively in multicultural teams. So you work together, not just the students, but also faculty. What does it look like for social sciences in general, in your research, in your teaching? In this slide, I talk about the epistemology and ontology of social sciences. Quick review, epistemology is the, what is knowledge, is the question, the philosophical question of what is knowledge. And ontology is the nature of existence, the nature of being, right? So if you study methodological variations in research across cultures, it means that you understand people do research differently across cultures. You don't assume that the standard way of doing research, assuming what truth is, assuming how to approach knowledge is the same across cultures. So that's what it looks like to be interculturally competent. You also examine how cultural context shapes social theories. Again, this is epistemology and ontology. Social theories didn't come from the sky, from the heavens, and it's the truth with a capital T, the big truth. It is based on certain knowledges and ways of knowing how the world works that are culturally shaped. So what you consider to be worthy of study might not be what someone else considers to be worthy of study. What you consider to be true might not be what someone else considers to be true. And as academics, as social theorists, we understand that humans are highly dynamic and ever-changing, so that we follow along with that understanding of diversity, dynamism, and complexity of the human species, I would say. What does it look like to be interculturally competent in social sciences, including komunikasi? You incorporate indigenous knowledge systems alongside conventional approaches, which are mostly European, which are mostly from advanced countries with people who look in a certain way, who don't look like us necessarily. So you do not take away indigenous knowledge systems thinking that they are less than what we're educated in. That is interculturally competent. You study them alongside and honor them alongside conventional theories that we've been taught when we did our studies. Next slide is about practical steps on an administrative structural level of how do we get there? How do we get there to be an interculturally competent, internationalized UNJ and other universities in Indonesia? I would say that this is half a dream and half some of the things that I have seen applied in my own university at Cal Poly Pomona. So first of all, you have a curriculum integration. What does that look like? You follow the infusion model where you incorporate intercultural elements into existing courses rather than creating separate intercultural courses standalone. So for example, in our Prodi Komunikasi here at UNJ, we have KLB, but KLB should be something that's incorporated in every single class you have. And this can be applied to other social sciences as well. In preparation for this talk, I asked my colleagues back in California about what they've done to incorporate intercultural elements in their classes. And I received really good feedback because I'm the person who teaches the standalone intercultural communication class at Cal Poly Pomona. So this semester while I'm here, they didn't have a class on intercultural communication. No class on KLB over there in California right now. So this is what they said. For example, they use case studies, they use comparative exercises in their classes. A colleague of mine who is a journalism professor, she teaches investigative journalism. One of the assignments she has for her students is for them to investigate an issue that is precious and are valuable to a certain community. It could be an African American issue, Asian American, Latino American, Indigenous Indian American. So they try to gauge that community, but also learn the perspective from the community. A colleague of mine who teaches public speaking, a very standard class for all communication majors. One of the assignments she requires her student, the first assignment, is to give a speech about a cultural artifact, something that they find to be valuable from their own culture, for their own identity. So things like that. right? So you incorporate intercultural elements. It's not just something that they can study in a class like intercultural communication or KLB. You incorporate the cultural elements into the class itself with assignments, with explanations. Last but not least, a colleague of mine who teaches PR campaigns, public relations campaigns, he has a section on different cultural campaigns and how they have succeeded or failed. And that's an interesting study of how PR is not separate from the culture to which they're trying to campaign to, right? Second, for curriculum integration, you have collaborative learning activities. You design assignments for Indonesian contexts that require Indonesian and international students to work together, share perspectives. I hope that this is something that can happen, if not already, for UNJ. Last but not least, you have experiential learning, experience, learn by doing. I witnessed that this past Wednesday when students in KLB performed and staged a four-hour show, a massive cultural effort on their end. And I saw that they learned so much just by putting it together, but it's also a celebration of the diversity of our culture, our beautiful Indonesian culture. The example that I give here, service learning in culturally diverse communities in Indonesia, is, I apologize beforehand if you're doing it already. What is this American professor trying to tell me? Why is she tell me to do something that I've already done, right? The reason why I included this was because we do have service learning in California, in my university. And if you have a service learning component to your class, then you have to, as students, as faculty member, you have to serve a community and learn about their cultures, but you're also integrating the learn by doing project-based learning in that format itself. For experiential learning, you can also conduct virtual exchange projects with partner universities abroad. This is aspirational because we haven't done that yet at Cal Poly Pomona. I've done some Zoom interactions with students in Hong Kong. I hope to continue that with our students here at UNJ. But right now, it's something that I hope we can do more there in California. And I wish the same for you because I think it's really effective if you have exchange projects with universities abroad and their students and faculty. For faculty development, again, some of these is aspirational. Some of them are something that we've done already in my university back home in California. I would recommend intercultural mentoring programs where we pair internationally experienced faculty with those new to multicultural teaching. This we haven't done yet at Cal Poly Pomona. Most of the time we're left alone to our own classes, and we do have a peer review system where we review the senior professors, review junior professors' teaching performance, but it's not intentional with multiculturality and diversity in mind, not yet. I hope, I aspire that I can bring that home with me. Teaching clinics, providing workshops on facilitating intercultural dialogue and managing classroom dynamics. This we have in California. What does it mean? What does it look like? We have cultural centers in my home university where they will come to our class. In fact, I co-taught a class with the intercultural dialogue coordinators, and we had dialogues about cultural differences, cultural similarities, tensions. As you can imagine, LA is not unlike Jakarta in that we're extremely diverse and we're extremely metropolitan. So there's a lot of fodder, there's a lot of material to work with regards to acknowledging our diversity, but also living in very close quarters, right? Like it or not, it's a big city, everyone's trying to do their thing, but with big city comes big headaches and problems. And how do you solve that from a cultural perspective? That we have already done and continue to do in my home university. And last but not least, resources and support. You should develop teaching materials that help faculty integrate intercultural elements appropriate to their discipline, right? This means, anything that's needed. Video, maybe teachers get a TikTok account, not to be obsessed about TikTok content, but to even post content that's relevant to what they and their students are learning. This is really just off the top of my head. examples of what we can do to develop teaching materials and support for our faculty to be more intercultural. So now we move on to the second half of the presentation. And this is where I share with some of you who might not be familiar with our cultural approach to communication. I hope that this would be helpful for you. This is what I teach my students. I think this should be a review for my students and something that can be applied to your daily life. I'm going to start with Hofstede's 5 dimensions of national culture. It's very simplistic and it's actually been debunked by a lot of people. They're critical of Hofstede's generalization of cultures. But I think as an introduction to intercultural communication, it's useful because you can have an idea of what a culture values. And then from there, you can adjust your communication styles accordingly, right? And it's also a good mirroring activity, self-reflecting activity, because then you can think about your own culture. What is the power distance in Indonesian culture? Do we like uncertainty or do we avoid it? Are we individualistic or collective? Masculine or feminine? But in this case, it means the segregation or blending in of gender roles, not whether someone dresses or acts feminine or masculine. It's more about gender equality or lack thereof. You have long-term orientation. Do we Indonesians plan for the future, or do we YOLO? You only live once? Let's just have fun, right? And remember, at the end of the day, it's patterns and not people. We're looking at patterns. We're not trying to stereotype, but there are some patterns that are cultural that might help us, guide us as we navigate our way through intercultural moments that might be awkward, canggung, that might be even offensive. People get angry. How do we avoid that from happening? But also, how do we cultivate an effective cultural interaction, right? So I'm going to go through it very quickly again. For power distance is whether a culture is high power distance or low power distance. High power distance cultures are comfortable with hierarchy. Low power distance, not so much. They believe in egalitarianism. Uncertainty avoidance means, do they like uncertainty or do they not like uncertainty? If you're high uncertainty avoidant, that means you do not like it. You avoid it highly, right? Whereas if it's low uncertainty avoidance, you're okay with vagueness, you're okay with things changing, you're okay with things being more fluid. Individualism versus collectivism, I think that's pretty obvious, especially in our culture here in Indonesia, which is much more collectivistic than Western cultures. So if you're individualistic, you prioritize the individual versus the collective. If you're collectivistic, everything is for the group, the individual is less emphasized. As I mentioned, masculinity versus femininity, it just means whether there are clear gender roles in a culture or whether they're more blended, right? So if a father's job is to bring home the bread, bring home the income, and a mother's job is to care for the children, and it's very obvious, then I would say that's a masculine society. Whereas in feminine societies, the roles are more blurry. They're not as well defined, right? So what culture are you dealing with? Long-term orientation, do you save money? If you're a student and you're here for your education, that means you're planning for the future. If you're only going to live in the moment, then you as a culture will also approach your life differently, right? So there's much more partying. It's a lot more fun. People don't take themselves as seriously and they just live in the present and not think too much about the future. So these 5 dimensions of national culture, again, is supposed to be a set of tools for you to help figure out a culture quickly, including your own. But of course, please don't use it to stereotype someone because you never know. Give everyone, in this case, I'm individualistic. Give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Let them show themselves who they are. Give them a chance, but it's not going to hurt if you have an idea of where they're coming from culturally. So I tell my students this: if I teach you intercultural communication, KLB, and I don't mention about high context, low context, that means I failed you as an intercultural communication teacher. Why? Because Edward T. Hall, who's the founder, who's been credited as the founder of ICC, there's more comfortable high context communication, low communication. That's what that if I don't teach you this in a class called intercultural communication, then I have failed you as a teacher. What does it mean to be a culture that's high context? High context means that context matters. Right now, I'm here in room 212 in Gedung Visha, and I am in a meeting room with my colleagues and my students. We're all dressed formally, right? So whatever I say in this context is different than if I were going to hang out with them at Block M later to have lunch with the same clothes, but we're going to act differently, right? So meaning is in the context. What's said can mean different things depending on context, which means that words mean less than the context itself, right? It's indirect communication. For someone who's used to low context, where meanings in the words, a high context person drives them really crazy, right? It's like, why don't you say what you mean, right? And I think for us Indonesians, we understand because we are about the collective. We're about maintaining harmony. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, so we want to be polite, right? An example that I often give to my students over there is the Indonesian, and students over here too, is the Indonesian word belum, not yet. But belum can mean a lot of things. It depends on the context. It depends on how it's said and what it's said about. For someone who doesn't understand, they take it literally. That means they're low context. The meanings in the words. If someone says belum, that means not yet. It doesn't mean no. And then I try to explain to people like my husband, who's not from here, that nobody says tidak for the most part, right? Unless it's a really high stress situation or joking, right? Most people say belum, and he would be confused. He's a low context person, right? He's like, why don't they just say tidak? I said, you can't because it's too rude, because that's too direct, right? So a low context person like my husband, the meanings in the words, they do not change over context. It's a direct communication. For both high context and low context, I put here public/private sphere distinction. What does that mean? It means that because everything is contextual, including low context situations, you cannot let go of the fact that we change the way we speak depending where we are, who we're with, as in context. So I don't know about you all, but my family, if they're high context in the public setting, they're very direct and low context in the private setting, right? They tell me exactly what's wrong with me. They tell me what to do with my hair. They tell me what to wear because they think they're being close. They are low context in private sphere situations at home, right? And I can tell you that in countries that are low context or cultures that are low context, they might be direct at work, but when they're at home, they're not going to speak to their children the way our parents speak to us, right? So it really is, everything is context dependent. If you forget everything I've told you about today, because again, webinars are sometimes not as effective in teaching, I don't find. At least I'm not a good teacher when I don't see you in person. But if you forget everything, remember context matters. Context matters. So as you can imagine, there's a potential misunderstanding between people who are more direct with people who are more indirect, right? What happens if the more direct person is confused and the more indirect person is offended? What do? Can you adjust your communication depending on your audience? That's what we teach our students to do. We teach our students to be aware and to adapt accordingly, which makes you an effective communicator. Okay, now here's the fun part. I'm going to give you two scenarios, intercultural scenarios of what happened. And I want you to give your thoughts, your explanations, your interpretations, also your recommendations as to how we can make it better, a way to remedy the situation. Let's start with scenario one. An American friend gives you a gift on your birthday. You politely thank them and set the gift aside to be opened later. The next day, you find out from another friend that your American friend was disappointed that you didn't get to open the gift in front of them. They're not sure whether you liked it or not. What happened? Is there a way to remedy the situation? So I'm going to stop sharing right now, and so I can see someone, anyone? Would you mind answering? And or you can also type on chat. What would you recommend? A way to remedy this. What happened? What was the intercultural misunderstanding here?
Anybody who would like to address the opinion about the scenario, the first scenario, what would you do? Maybe some of you have ever, stumbled upon this kind of situation. Okay, we have Auron here at the chat box.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. So you're saying, well, you're just going to approach your friend and explain. Is that correct? So you're saying, you know what, there's a misunderstanding. So, okay, yeah. I think that's a great strategy, right? Because you're addressing the problem directly. You're being direct, right? You're telling them, you know what, this is what we do. So what is it about the culture, our culture, where we don't open a gift in front of someone? It could be Alron or anyone else. What is it? How would you explain to your American friend, like in Indonesian culture, we don't open a gift right in front of someone? Why? They would ask, why? What would you say? Okay, Dewan Daru, please.
Yes, I'm sorry that I cannot open my camera because my internet is kind of low. So maybe first I will apologize first because yeah, we have some kind of different type of culture, and I will explain why I didn't open the gift directly because in Indonesia it's considered like impolite to open it or open the gift directly. So I will explain it to our friends from American. Thank you.
Thank you, Dewan Daru. You answered the question, but you didn't really answer it. Why is it rude? Right? Like you can tell them, we don't do that there because we don't do this here because it's rude. So why is it rude? Why is it rude to open a gift? And what would you say? What would someone else say? What does it say about our culture if we can't open a gift in front of someone? What does it say about our values? I want us to dig deeper because to say it's rude, that doesn't, of course they know it's rude. That's why you didn't do it, right? But why? Humility. Okay, Krishnamurti. Why? What about humility? Anyone else is welcome to raise their hand and unmute.
Hi. Hello. Yeah, I mean, this isn't a sign of rudeness or disinterest. It's a gesture of respect, humility, and emotional sensitivity. I think, and the first one is, I think, the respect for the giver and opening a gift immediately and reacting on the spot might put the giver or receiver in a uncomfortable position, and especially if the reaction is not what we expected. So we wait until later helps avoid any embarrassment or awkwardness. So yeah, and I think in Asia culture we have this saving face. Maybe you might understand. So yeah, that's the
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes, exactly. Dig deeper. Whenever something happens, you ask yourself why, and you can give a good explanation. And someone might not accept it. They're like, well, that's weird. Doesn't matter. You already explained the cultural logic behind that act, right? And this is what we are aiming for, at least a cultural understanding. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's play some more. Let's do another scenario, and then we're gonna go with Q&A. All right, here goes. The second scenario is longer. It's more on a professional context. And so I want you all to think about it, take some time to think about it, right? Professor Budi Santoso is an Indonesian professor who is meeting with his American colleague, Professor Jennifer Mitchell, about the potential research collaboration. The meeting is set in the US, in a university in America. Professor Budi came 15 minutes early, wearing a nice batik shirt and dress shoes. He also prepared a PowerPoint presentation about his pedigree and research interests. Professor Jennifer, call her Jen, arrived 10 minutes late to their meeting in jeans, a t-shirt, and sandals. She brought 2 large cups of cafe latte to share with Professor Budi. When Prof. Budi offered to share his PowerPoint presentation with her, Jen said, "Oh, don't worry about that. Tell me about yourself. How do you like being in America? What's your favorite American food?" Professor Budi is confused, doesn't know how to proceed with the meeting. What should he do? So 2 questions here. Number 1, how should he proceed? Number 2, how would you advise Professor Jennifer Mitchell to do or say for her next meeting with him as someone who's from the culture? Okay, I'll give you about like a couple seconds to read through the scenario again, and then I'm going to stop sharing the screen so I can see and hear you with regards to your answers. Okay, so what's your answer? What should he do? And what should she do for future meetings?
Okay, hello, Miss Sunny Lee. I would really appreciate your opportunity. I want to answer about the what should Professor Budi do? I think Professor Budi should take a step back, like recognize that what happened isn't disrespect. Maybe it's just a cultural difference again, like the scenario first. And in American academic, especially in more casual environment, meeting can be less formal and more like relationship oriented long-term goals. Instead of feeling disrespected, maybe Professor Budi could try to adopt slightly by engaging in small talk and answering Professor Jennifer's personal question. I mean, after building the rapport, he can gently steer the conversation back to the research topic by saying something like, I'd love to share more about myself through the work we've been through. And yeah, like maybe he's trying to understand that's not a really, that's just a cultural difference, and he can talk about it too with Professor Jennifer like that. And also, I think what I would advise to Professor Jennifer for her next meeting with him is like she should know about the cultural difference too, like especially in Asian cultures, especially in Indonesia, formality, like in her next meeting, she could acknowledge about this being on time, like dressing slightly more professionally and starting with a more structured agenda. Like she might say sorry about it and like, I've really appreciated the effort you put into this presentation, this meeting last time, and I really love to go through the detail today like that. Like I think that's more shows cultural sensitivity and mutual respect without losing their authentic and personality like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's such a great answer. It's very thorough, very culturally aware and sensitive. So Prof. Budi can enjoy his cafe latte and just hang out for a bit. He can also, steer the conversation to something more serious later. Like we humans, again, are very dynamic and we can always adjust. I love that. And also for Prof. Jennifer, she can also be more formal and start with more formality, easing into casualness later, right? So it's a very ebb and flow, very dynamic. It's like a dance, right? But it requires both people to respect the other person's culture and being willing to find some kind of middle ground. And a lot of times we don't think about it that way. We don't think, oh, is it cultural? Immediately, usually we're like, oh, that person's rude. Oh, I don't like that person. I don't like how informal they are. Sandals? Are you kidding me? Right? Or Prof. Jennifer would say, oh, he's so rigid, he's not it feels like he's a robot. He's not really someone I want to work with, right? So usually we just blame the person. We don't think about cultural differences. And I hope that through a talk like this, that instead of immediately saying person's fault, you say, is it cultural, right? You can ask the question, am I sure? Right. And that's a good starting point, because at least you withhold your judgment and you try to find out and be curious about what's going on. Okay, thank you so much. Again, awesome answers, and I really appreciate it. So I think I am pretty much done with my presentation. I don't have much to share anymore. I have my information here if you want to keep in touch, but let me share with you my parting thoughts. First of all, there must be university investment in internationalization, in interculturality, if we truly want to be interculturally competent at all levels, right? Particularly in social sciences, because intercultural communication is a social science. There's interest in what Indonesia has to offer. There really is. We need to highlight our uniqueness. We want to invite other people to come and study with us and work with us. And we have so much to offer. Our students have so much to offer. They're talented, they're smart, they're thoughtful. It's been such an honor and privilege to be with everyone this semester. And last but not least, intercultural competency is a skill that can be developed. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's not some secret talent that you were born with, but it's truly something that you can work on with consciousness, with intention, and also not being afraid to make mistakes, obviously. Thank you so much for your time. Please keep in touch. And I'm going to stop sharing my slides here for a more interactive session, question and answers, comments. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sonny, from a very insightful presentation about social science, quite brief and extensive, just like I previously mentioned. Okay, before we move on to the Q&A session, I will try to summarize what Dr. Sonny has been saying about the materials. First one is that social science can navigate complexities with sensitivities. And then in addition to that, context is everything. Also the importance of indigenous knowledge and experiential learning. Also, it's important to have a supportive environment at the university. We hope that Indonesian University can implement some of those points. So let's move on to the Q&A session. In the first term, I will open the 3 questions first. Is that okay, Dr. Sani? Yes. We already have one question from the chat box. I will read it later on. We'll begin with the attendees. Probably some of you, the participant, would like to ask a question to Dr. Sani. You can raise your hand. So siapa cepat dia dapat, first come, first serve. Anybody? Oh, Mr. Nino.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Nino.
Hello. Yeah, I just want to have one question about how can we as social scientists remain sensitive to power dynamics when studying or teaching about different cultures in Indonesia. Because I'm thinking about our positionality or reflexivity, and we don't want to have this avoiding extractive practices when we gather data from a marginalized or indigenous communities. So what do you think about that?
So thank you, Professor Nino. Yes, let me ask you this. Are you asking about research and gathering data or teaching or both?
Probably research first and then goes into teaching.
for research, my background is in ethnography. So I was trained in ethnography of communication. First of all, when it comes to research, we are inclusive. We call them participants, right? Not subjects. So they're included in every step of our process, right? Like we are transparent about what we're looking for. We present to them our data and how we're processing it. We give them the final product. Sometimes most of them are not interested because they think academic writing is boring, but we give it to them. We're like, does this ring true to you? Did we represent you correctly? Right. So my latest research that was published is about matchmakers in the US, so American matchmakers. And they were involved in the project from the start. I sent them questions that I was going to ask them. Granted, they might not be a marginalized community, but I made sure that I'm transparent from the start. But I can see your question about marginalized communities. They're more vulnerable and they might be protective because they've been taken advantage of so many times. It's understandable, right? But so in that case, it takes time to earn a community's trust, and you don't rush it. Like you don't rush and force them to let you in. If you have to step back and do something else in the meantime, right? It always helps to have someone on the inside to be your guide, right? Someone to guarantee that Professor Nino Krishnamurti has no bad intentions and is really interested in studying and representing the community with truth and honor, right? Someone who can vouch for you. But that takes time to develop that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
That's what.
Okay. Does it mean we need like a gatekeeper just to keep us in check, like the
Not even a gatekeeper, right? Someone who can introduce you to the community and maybe eventually a gatekeeper, a leader of sorts, but someone who can vouch for you, right? You don't have to just approach the most powerful person, just someone in the community who they trust, who can say he's got good intentions. It takes some time to build that. A lot of young ethnographers don't like that. They don't want to wait. But relationships takes time to build, like any relationship, right? You want to build trust, it takes time. So key informant, respect, involvement of the participants as much as they want throughout the whole research process, no hiding anything, and giving them back the final product should they be interested in knowing. So for the matchmakers who I recently studied, they liked it. They loved it. They interviewed me for a podcast. I sent them my paper. They read it, and I got their stamp of approval, right? But that's because I was always open about what I was trying to do research on. Yeah, no hiding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
With regards to teaching, I think, being a culturally sensitive professor means you acknowledge you don't know everything. You welcome your students to, chime in to participate. And if they ask you something like XYZ, I say, I don't know, I will come back. I will return with the information, and I keep my promise. So I write it down somewhere, I remember, and we have a conversation. But there's never shame about a student asking me something that I don't know, and I can say I don't know. I don't find young people nowadays, to be disrespectful. They're actually very respectful in the US too. They ask a question. If someone is defiant on purpose, again, like I just have to maintain my professionalism, right? Same thing, like, I don't know, that's a really good question. Let me get back to you. Right. And if somebody points something out that I didn't include, I will thank them, because my job is not AI. I might be replaced by AI someday, but my job is not AI in that I have to know everything. Right. But I definitely keep my promise in terms of coming back with an answer. And I try to derive from different sources too of knowledge. For example, I teach a class, and I'm going to teach it next semester at my university. It's called Racialized Language, Power, and Identities. And in the class, I teach about Spanglish, Spanish English spoken by the Latino community in LA. I teach about African American English or African American Vernacular English, AAE, AAVE. Obviously, I'm not a speaker of either language. I do not speak Spanish or Spanglish. I don't speak AAE. But I do include research from scholars from that community. And I ask my students who do speak Spanglish or AAE, is this correct? Tell me more. And I've learned so much from them. I think they like it that their language is elevated to the level of university study, right? And of course, I try to quote from scholars who are also from that community. So I hope that helps answer your question, Professor Nino.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So, the second question from the participants. Anybody? I challenge the students to ask the question to Dr. Sani. So
Sorry, I have a
my
question in the
students
chat
from-
box.
Okay. And anybody?
We can answer Professor Firas first, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Just, asking the questions in the chat box.
Okay, Professor Firas is asking, would you please advise on how intercultural capacity and intercultural capacity propel productive writing habits? Yeah, my email address is here. I'm happy to share it with you. I'm not going to be at communication program that much longer, but we can certainly meet on Zoom, or you can keep in touch with me through my email address. But for Professor Firas, my answer is, first off, writing is a pretty lonely endeavor, isn't it? When you're doing research and when you're writing your report about your research, I feel like I'm stuck in my head a lot because I'm thinking about these things that many people don't necessarily care about. And then I have to sort of process that and write it out to an academic community. So if you're interested in, collaborating with your colleagues, that's something that you might consider. I hope that there's funding from the university for you to attend some international conferences. It doesn't have to be very far, all the way in the US, right? I think the media conference for us communication people is happening in Singapore maybe next week, even June 14th. I'm not a media person, so I'm not aware of these things. That's what I would suggest, that you can then collaborate with other colleagues who might share your research interest and work together that way. As I mentioned, Indonesia has a lot to offer. We have a lot to offer. We have interesting, social dynamics. We have things that people don't know about. People keep on stereotyping Muslims as negatively as possible in the West. There's so many things that are interesting in our culture, and I see that you are a sociology professor, so I can only imagine the wealth of knowledge that you have to share. But my suggestion would be for you to reach out and liaise with international professors abroad whose work you admire, whose work you've read, but also meet them in person during conferences. I'm all about interpersonal communication. I think we should all interact person to person because that's just how we're made as human beings. I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sani. We have one more question for the first session because she sent me a direct message personally, so I will read it for you. Is that okay? Sure. Okay. So Noprita asked a question. Noprita is actually our new lecturers at the communication department. So she's basically new kids on the block. She asked a question: from your perspective, what key intercultural element in Indonesian society that should be carefully considered by communicators from European or American context when attempting to build effective communication strategies?
Thank you for your answer. The first thing that came to my mind was gender. When I came, okay, so first of all, a little context. I'm from here. I was born and raised in Jakarta Barat. I went to school here until I was 18, and then I went abroad. So I'm still Jakartan, I'm still Indonesian. And so when I came back here, when I returned here as an American to do my Fulbright program, the first day of our orientation, they talked about gender in Indonesian culture and what's expected, how to do nonverbal communication between genders, with genders, gender differences. I think that's important. I think a lot of European culture, again, I don't mean to stereotype, but there's a pattern there where you're not supposed to see gender, but it matters in our culture, right? So that. And then somebody said earlier, their answer was great, was brilliant, about harmony and collective face work. That's really important too. And we can say that that's a pattern that can be found in most Asian cultures where it's all about saving face. Saving face is actually a Chinese concept, 面子. You don't want to make someone lose face and embarrass them. I think that's a big one too. So indirect communication is preferred. and you have to read between the lines. You have to be high context. So to summarize my answer, number one, gender dynamics in Indonesia, you have to understand that and what is allowed and not allowed, what is appropriate, what is inappropriate. And then number two, also about direct, indirect communication and saving face. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sani, for the answer. So it's better to open the second sessions. I would like to challenge the students from our faculty or probably at the other university to open the screen and then ask the question personally to Dr. Sani. Come on, guys. I know you're there, my students. Okay, Laura, you can open your screen and then talk to Dr. Sani in person.
Hi, Naya.
Yeah. Hi, Prof. So first of all, I want to say sorry that I turn off my camera because I'm not really feel well. But my question is, some of us, the students, might want to continue our studies abroad, such as maybe to America or Europe, and we might learn a lot about intercultural communication or on how we should be interact with people from the other culture, but sometimes we don't really. But the thing is, we don't really have the actual experience of facing the other people from other culture, right? Because we only learn it from the class. So the thing is, do you have any tips or maybe a little bit of your experience? Maybe you could also tell us a little bit of experience when it comes to the first time we met people from other culture, especially the culture that's so much different from our culture. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Naya, for that question. So I would say, first and foremost, if it's a situation you're unsure of, just observe, right? Like be observant, you don't know what's going on, assess it. Like, what do people talk a lot? Do they hug? Do they laugh? Are they more distant? What's the gender dynamic like in this situation? How are they seated? What are they wearing? Like, just observe and take in what's going on, right? Like, be a student and be aware of your surroundings, right? That's number one. Number two, be prepared to make mistakes, right? And be open about it and say, even say, before even anything begins, you can say, oh, you know what? I just want to say, I don't know much about XYZ. Excuse my ignorance. Can you tell me more? Like, having someone, or befriending someone right away helps, right? Like a familiar face, someone who seems to be able to guide you through, that helps. Find a friendly face. So number one, observe. Observe. Number two, find a friendly face. Number three, be prepared to make mistakes, and it's okay. Like, forgive yourself, right? Because that's how you learn. In our class, we talk about rich points. Rich points are moments when you just suddenly realize that something has gone awry, something's not working. But instead of calling it culture shock, you call it a rich point because you want to say, this is a moment of learning, and this is an opportunity for you to build a bridge between your culture and the other person's culture, which makes it a very rich point, a point where opportunity lies, right? And so be open, be curious, be prepared to make mistakes, but also observe, right? Don't panic and be in yourself. You have to be external and see what's going on. It's the opposite, like reduce your own anxiety by observing what's going on. Like, make yourself little, right? In a sense where like you can make yourself little in a sense that you're observing and you're learning, but also and then make yourself your normal size again, right? By saying, this is me, this is who I am, I'm Indonesian, I'm Muslim, I'm a woman, and these are the things that I do, right? For example, like, because I want to say make yourself little, but I don't want to say make yourself little forever. A lot of us we're taught to do that, especially as women. And I don't want that for you, you know? And it's not effective anyways. It takes two people to communicate interculturally. Where are you? Where are you if you're so little? They can't even see you. So I hope that helps.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
very
you so
much,
much, Prof.
Dr. Sani. Inaya, is that okay? You want
Yes.
to elaborate more, maybe? No. So, one more student. I expect one more student to ask the questions to Dr. Sani. Probably from the class of 2022.
Aku mau tanya Mas Sandi.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Prof, wait. So my name is Aura and I'm from communication student here. And while half-state cultural dimension provides.
Aura, do you mind? Yeah, if you open.
Oh my God.
You open the screen so I can see you.
I'm sorry, Mas. Tapi
It's a high context
my
communication.
camera laptop is error. So yeah,
Okay,
I'm so sorry about it.
a very high context answer. I can understand that.
Yes. Okay. So you were talking about the
Yes. What was your question, Aura?
Okay. Is my voice okay? So
You were cutting off a little bit, but now you're back.
okay, thank you. So you talk about the half-state cultural dimension list, right? And you said that you mentioned that patrons are not people, which I found like particularly insightful. In that light, I'm so curious about Prof, when we adjust our communication styles across cultures, like, are we truly being adaptive or are we just performing what others want to see? Like, I want to know what's your thought. Like, at what point does intercultural competence become a performance to please rather than an authentic way of being us, like that?
I'm really sorry, Aura, because some of your questions were kind of cut off a bit. So let me just repeat the questions. Your question, I hope I'm understanding it correctly. You're asking a question about being interculturally competent, but also having to hide your authentic self. And at one point, is your true self, like what point can it emerge, right? Do you have to hide yourself? Isn't that being fake? Does that
Yeah. Yes, that's what I mean. Like, at what point? Right, Prof. Oh my God.
I think she has a difficulties finding the signal. Yeah. But that's okay, I think.
Hello.
Oh,
Okay, I'm sorry
okay.
for the several problem here, Prof.
Aura, you still
Yeah.
there?
Hello.
Sebentar ya, kita ngalamin masalah teknis. I hope that we can return in a few minutes.
Sorry about that.
Enggak. So in the meantime, Dr. Sani will use my resources. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Aura. Thank you for your question. I think it's a really important question because you're asking about like, to what extent do you hide yourself in order to be culturally effective, right? So the answer is, just because you have to adapt doesn't mean you have to like fake it, huh? So there's definitely a certain level of performance to it, right? Where you're like, well, in order to communicate effectively, I have to do this, this, and this for this person. But I ask you, are you always authentic in your daily communication with people from the same culture? Do you communicate the same way with your professor versus your friends versus your family? I would argue that you also have adapted and have been adapting in your daily communication here in your own culture, right? So with that type of adaptation, just think about how you communicate in daily life. You're always changing, you're adapting. Would you say that you're fake you in one situation and not, and more authentic you in another? Maybe, right? Maybe you put on more a mask when you're in formal situations where you're talking to your professors, you have to be polite, and then you can't say no, or you disagree, you can't do that, right? Then you have to somewhat hide a part of yourself. But I would argue this is something that we do all day in our own culture, in our own cultural contexts. So with regards to anything that's about communication, it all depends on who you are, where you are, who you're with, and whatever symbolic resources that are available to you, right? So the symbolic resource here, I mean, it's not just the ability to speak English and Bahasa Indonesia, but also a cultural awareness of what's appropriate, inappropriate, what works, what doesn't work, right? So in order for you to deliver your message most effectively, you might have to adapt. But I really hope that that doesn't mean you completely erase your authentic self. It's just a different presentation, right? A different presentation. And I mean, at the end of the day, when you're in a professional setting, you probably don't want to necessarily present your whole true self anyways, right? You save that for special people in your life who you feel like you don't have to hide, you don't have to wear a mask for. That's why when you're with close friends and family, it feels so comfortable to be around them because you don't have to edit yourself as much. But for the most part, I would say that we do that already in our culture. So you increase the awareness and then you adapt accordingly, right? And then when you feel like you can trust the person too, you can be more open, right? All of us know that small talk, chit chat matters, professional settings matter. There are certain guidelines to being professional that might not be true to your authentic self at the moment, right? But I hope that answers your question. So I think I went all over the place. So if I can summarize it, yes, sometimes you have to hide your authentic self. You do it in your culture already because we change the way we communicate in different settings already. For intercultural awareness, you're just figuring out how to present yourself in the way that's most effective, right? But is it all yourself that you're presenting? Maybe, maybe not, right? A true communicator is someone who knows how to approach their audience. And sometimes, it's not something that they're ready for yet. Sometimes it might be a culturally inappropriate topic, so you don't bring it up because in a formal setting, you don't want to upset anyone. But maybe later on, in a more informal setting, you could be more direct, more honest, and hopefully you have that spaces for you to be yourself. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sani, for your answers.
Yeah.
I would like to challenge, is there any more student? I give more opportunities to the student who would like to ask a question. At least we need one more from the students. Okay, Machiko and the runner-up. Apparently we have two questions. Is that okay, Dr. Sani?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. Probably we start with Machiko first.
All right.
Hi,
Hello,
Machiko.
Sunny. So I was inspired by the scenario 2 that you gave. I want to ask, since cultural misunderstandings can sometimes create awkward situations, what are effective and respectful strategies for addressing misunderstandings that
I can't hear her.
arise from cultural differences? Well, while ensuring that the other party does not feel blamed or offended. Thank you.
Sorry, Machiko, would you mind repeating your question? I couldn't hear the first part. Thank you.
Okay, so I was inspired by the scenario two that you gave. I want to ask, since cultural misunderstandings can sometimes create awkward situations, what are effective and respectful strategies for addressing misunderstandings that arise from cultural differences without making the other parties feel blamed or offended? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question. Making mistakes is part of being a better communicator, but especially intercultural communicator. So get ready for that. When a mistake happens, laugh it off. Just acknowledge that it's just being human. We are full of flaws, right? So if you make it lighter, it's like the other person, it's almost like if something happens, the other person's looking to you like, how are you going to react, right? And you can make it light, and you can even also acknowledge it. Oh, I think that there was an intercultural error there. You know what? Did I say something inappropriate? I apologize. Like, you just immediately own it, right? You own it. Or if the other person did it, right? You can smile and say, I'm not sure about that, right? Like, you can always do something where it's not like you're wrong. Nobody ever says that, especially in Indonesian culture, right? But you can also be generous about it. Like, a lot of us in my class, I teach something called communication accommodation theory, and one of the things that this theory posits is that in most situations we are polite people and we normalize. So if somebody says something that's like, oh, that's wrong, you just kind of pass it. You pass by it, right? Like, you just pretend like it didn't happen, right? Like, most of us are very generous that way. So, but if you're the person who's making the mistake, just laugh it off, like, accept it, right? Own it and say, oh, I'm so, apologize. Like, oh, I did not mean that. I'm so sorry. I didn't, if that came across as rude, or like, oh, you know what? Like, you own it, and then you can explain. But if the person accepts it or not, it's not your problem, right? But at least you're like, oh, I see that, and I learned right away. I learned right away, and then, oh wow, that was embarrassing, but I'm gonna move on now. Because if you don't make mistakes, if you're perfect, then that's the end of your evolution, right? In evolutionary biology, if a species is perfect, that means they're extinct because they cannot adapt. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Dewan Daru, you had a question?
Yes, I do have a questions. So maybe I
Yeah,
will.
go ahead.
Okay, so 2 days ago,
I
I
need to
had
be able
the
to hear you though,
opportunity.
so follow me, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Dewan Daru, go ahead.
Okay, so 2 days ago, I had the opportunity to meet a Vietnamese student from UMT. And when we are talking to each other, I noticed that we both share some confusion when we are trying to talk about sensitive topics like gender or politics or even the culture itself, because how of those are viewed differently in our cultures. And so how do we build a safe intercultural communication spaces like without avoiding complex conversation? Like, should we prioritize a cultural sensitivity over a freedom of expression, or is there a middle ground between those two things? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dewandaru. It sounds like you've made a new friend, so that's good because it's going to take a while for you to build that relationship to the point where you can be open and direct, like any relationship, right? So that's good. And it's a good question you're asking because you're aware already of the cultural differences, right? So I think like the most basic thing that you can do is ask more questions and be interested about his culture, right? Like, I hope you know most about, Indonesian culture, but ask more about Vietnamese culture, right? You're like, well, in your culture, is it okay to talk about gender? What about LGBT rights, right? What about this? What about that in Indonesia? And you can, volunteer the information. Like in Indonesia, LGBT rights is still very taboo. For example, I'm just giving an example, right? And then you can learn, right? So you're learning, and then you can also do a comparison, right? And as you learn and do a comparison, then I hope that then both of you would have acquired enough knowledge, right, to then have you're communicating more. That automatically means your communication will be more smooth because there's trust, right? In our theory, we have something called uncertainty reduction theory. And the theory goes that, for every interaction, every human being wants to reduce their uncertainty of the other person. And that's what you're doing. Like you're starting in the stage where you're getting to know each other, all the way to maybe you'll be great friends, close friends. Maybe you'll just be at the level of acquaintanceship. You'll just know this person as an international student in our campus and a classmate, but not a friend, right? And that's okay too. So depending on the level of interaction as well, it also indicates the level of your trust and friendship and intimacy. And from there, you can see, right? And then there's another theory we call social penetration theory. And in social penetration theory, you go to topics that go deeper and deeper about your family, about your hopes and dreams, about your view of death and dying, right? It goes deeper and deeper. And maybe with some people, you only talk about ONJ stuff. You only talk about like problems about school and worries. With other people, you can be very self-disclosing where you share a lot more. And with this new friend, you'll see where it goes. In the meantime, ask a lot of questions, right? And learn. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, bro.
Thank you, Dr. Sani. Thank you. I still remember you are my student, right? So thank you for coming. So thank you for coming up. Okay, we are basically at the very end of the session. I have actually a final question to Dr. Sani. Is that right if I ask you a question? Dr. Sani? Okay. So I have a question. As an academics working at the university, do you have a research recommendations for us? What you think might be future research recommendation for us that might be valuable for us to execute for the next 5 to 10 years in social science? Do you have any suggestions in terms of topics, methodologies, or the trends in social science that we might execute?
I mean, right now, everyone's talking about AI, right? Like everything is about AI, but you don't have to jump into the trendy, trendy topic just because it's trendy, right? I think stay true to your interests. I would encourage Indonesian academics to really highlight some Indonesian things that, that people don't know about. And there's so much precious knowledge. And Mas Sandi shared with me your thesis, about game developers in Indonesia and the dilemmas they face as game developers. That's very uniquely Indonesian, including like government support, lack thereof, including, and that's really fascinating, right? Like I didn't know there were game developers in Indonesia. I didn't know there were these issues. So I don't know, like part of me is like, why do we have to jump into the trendy bandwagon? Because some things only because you've been studying it yourself. You're the expert. So don't lose confidence in that. And you're interested. right? I mean, for research, I don't know, for some students, if you're interested in being an academic someday, you have to truly love something to study it because it's going to take a lot of your time. And it's going to be it feels very lonely because other people don't know about it. They might not care about it, but you care about it. So that's the good thing about chasing your passion and interest as well, because it's going to keep it going, because research is hard. You have to do it in your free time. There's very little support, you know, in my university too, you know. So if it's not your interest, what else would drive you, right? And I think there is room for that, like for, you know, Indonesian issues. Of course, it's really important to keep up with what's being studied right now so you can be part of the conversation, be a relevant part of the conversation, right? You're not just saying something from 10 years ago. You're like, I am aware of this, but this is my contribution. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sunny, for the insightful suggestions for us and academics working at the universities. So I take that as a final remarks, I guess, from Dr. Sunny. And I do hope that this session would be the first and the last. I hope that this session will be the first for many, many more. So thank you very much, Dr. Sunny. I return the stage to the couples of MC. So you can reclaim the stage again. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sandi. Thank you to our distinguished speakers for their insightful contribution. And thank you to Mr. Sandi for skillfully moderating this session.
All right, before we end this precious moment, let us take a moment for documentation and the awarding of certificate and flags to Professor Sani. We kindly ask all participants to open the camera and smile for the group photo. To the documentation team, you may now proceed.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Cheers, everyone. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the committee, I'm Zulfian, also my partner.
Azalia Belinda.
We would like to express our deepest appreciation to everyone for attending this event. It has been such a great pleasure to meet you all.
We hope that the result of today's discussion will bring the benefits of knowledge for all of us.
Thank you and see you on the next event. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Also, reminder for all participants to fill in the attendance for certificate. Thank you.